My name is Glenn Coggy. I run Labor Front. I'd like to take and thank Randi McCallain for taking time out of her busy schedule to come on Labor Front on our Table Talk series. We're going to talk about her campaign, what got her involved in the campaign, and we'll go from there. And I'm going to turn it over right now. Randi, I hope I didn't mess your name up. I've been practicing it, but I probably still didn't get it right.
Thanks, Glenn. It's okay. My name is Randi McCallain. It's easier than you think. It just looks hard.
Right.
McCallain. But thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here with everyone and anyone who tunes in or watches later. I am running for the 8th Congressional District in Missouri. So that is the whole southeast corner of Missouri from Rolla and I-44 down into the Boot Heel. And there's 28 counties in the district. I am running for lots of reasons. I want to see our rural district thrive. I really believe that, just because we're rural doesn't mean we shouldn't have access to things that a city has. I really think our district needs, broadband internet access to help us have access to what other people have with healthcare and education and jobs online. I see that our district is struggling with poverty, with food insecurity. Our housing is crumbling or it's too expensive to afford. And that's just not okay. This is such a beautiful district and it's a big agriculture district. And we need to be improving our support of agricultural areas as we, struggle through climate change and inflation and the things that COVID did to our food networks. That's really important. So let me tell you just a little bit about me then. I am a mom of two girls, and I live out off some dirt roads in rural Missouri. And I moved from a big city in Colorado. I moved from Colorado Springs. And we came here because the climate crisis is burning down Colorado. We have two young children who we wanted to raise in an environment where they had a lot of community support. And we knew that our rural communities were really wonderful and strong for that, for the neighbor to neighbor connections that you build. And I have family here in Missouri. And so we wanted to come somewhere where we had that support. I don't want to just keep talking and talking, but I will give a little bit more info and then I want to get to some of your questions, Glenn. But I have a background in maternal and child health. I've been a health educator for about 15 years with families, usually in their homes, working very closely with families. And I also have experience improving our healthcare system. And so I worked on some projects to make maternal and child maternity care better in the hospitals, like NICU care for babies in the neonatal intensive care unit. And I really started noticing that all the people working at the bottom with me, doing work in houses with families, saw the answers that we needed. We knew and saw all the barriers that families faced. And a lot of those felt like they were put there by the government, that it was government barriers in our way to being able to thrive. And so I kind of started leaving the field of maternal and child health as a worker, and I started getting into political advocacy to make those changes in the government that we know need to happen to help people thrive.
Right. Well, that's great. And all those were obviously very good goals. And um, Missouri's 8th Congressional District, which I was part of until the redistricting. So I kind of know about it. And I'm born and raised in rural Missouri and lived in Bonne Terre, which is in the 8th Congressional, down in Jackson, went to grade school in Farmington, and graduated high school down in Sykeston, Missouri. So I've
You've
got,
been all over the eight.
I have, yes. So I have a pretty good knowledge of the 8th Congressional District. And one of the things that I've noticed over the years and years of Republican control is that the Missouri's 8th District has gotten poorer and poorer. The poverty rates in Missouri's 8th Congressional District are in the bottom third of all congressional districts throughout the United States. There's 435 districts, and I think that Missouri's 8th Congressional ranks around 380, 385.
Yep.
So whoever's been representing that has not been doing a very good job of finding ways to improve the standard of living for the people that live in Missouri's 8th Congressional District. Do you have ideas or programs or any thoughts on how you could improve the standard of living for Missouri's citizens in the 8th Congressional District?
Yeah, great question. And you're absolutely right. And this district is so full of resources. It is a beautiful district with thick, gorgeous, healthy forests. So I see so much opportunity here, so much opportunity here to grow and prosper off of the natural resources that we have, and to do that in a really sustainable and successful way. And I want to touch on that, but also say making sure that the 8th district has control of its own land would be a big part of that too, because in Missouri there's a huge number of acres that's owned by foreign entities. Like China owns a fair amount of our agricultural land in Missouri. So returning that land back to Missourians is important. And that moves into some ideas that we could be utilizing here in the 8th to help us prosper. One of those would be sustainable wood farming, and keeping our forests here in Missouri healthy. We do have controlled burning here, planned burns, prescribed burns, and that's really good. I come from a state, Colorado, that is having new record-setting fires every year. And one thing that has happened in Colorado is about 20 years ago, they banned prescribed burns because of some mistakes that happened, deaths that came of that. But it was a very reactionary step instead of truly forward thinking. And I see from the forest that I live in off some dirt roads that this forest here is very crowded, but with very healthy wood. So I think that we should be increasing our forest management in that sense here, and using some of that to help the 8th prosper. We also have beautiful spaces for people to come and enjoy, excellent fishing. There's, beautiful scenery and places to get away. There's so much space out here to be away from people. And I think that a little bit of investment here in the 8th, like in housing, would allow for a lot of people in the 8th to, join in on like the Airbnb craze, where they could rent out their homes, rent out a space so that people can come and enjoy fishing here, for example, in the 8th district.
Right. Well, that would be great. So your goals would be to try to help upgrade the infrastructure, especially when it comes to the timber industry, and find ways to assist the timber industry on marketing their products, make that an export out of the state of Missouri. Am I saying that right?
Possibly, yes. I would want to make sure that that jives with more of my district before we take steps like that. But that's one thing that I've been seeing as I've been here. And, our little area of forest, and we back up to the Mark Twain National Forest, all of that is very overcrowded in our area. And that sets you up for some of the issues that Colorado and California are having, with their forests in this climate crisis. And we need to prepare and be more resilient. And so I see that as a preparation tool in addition to something that we could be doing that would help the 8th district at the same time, because there's a lot that we can do here in the area, but we need someone who wants to focus on it and wants to talk to people in the district to actually make it better.
Right. Well, agriculture does play a huge role in the economy of the 8th Congressional District, especially when you get down in the southeast Missouri part of the district. Um, there's watermelon, there's corn, milo, beans, cotton, you name it, it's down there. And that is one of the big things and one of the big businesses for the Missouri's 8th Congressional District. I'm not sure how much manufacturing is left in the district, but I blame a lot of that on trade laws that have caused and created a situation where they've outsourced a lot of the jobs. And before anybody jumps in and says, well, what about the Democrats in NAFTA? It's true. NAFTA was pushed
Yes.
started with Reagan. It got supercharged under the Bush administration. And then Bill Clinton didn't do anything to stop it. And Obama didn't either, quite honestly.
Yep.
NAFTA's cost us a lot of jobs. Southeast Missouri used to have a handful of factories, and I don't know what manufacturing is left in Southeast Missouri. But that kind of jumps, go ahead.
Yeah, not much, but I'm really glad that you brought up NAFTA because that is something that I want the Democratic Party to own when we're in rural areas is that, the policy that got pushed under some others wasn't stopped by Democrats. And that's really
Right,
important because
right,
Democrats are supposed to be the party of the people and watching out for the people. And that wasn't helpful at all. And it was very harmful to my community.
right. Well, one of the things that you and I had the conversation last week, and then we talked a little bit before we started live. Um, and I don't want to get into too much beating up political parties and all that because I want to talk about the future. But I do think it's worth noting that when the Democratic Party fails on something, we can't hide from it.
Right.
NAFTA was a failure, straight, plain and simple. So we have to move forward. We have to find ways to fix that and move forward. As we talked earlier, I am a labor individual. I've been involved in unions and an activist for social and economic justice for a long, long time. And your position on organized labor, do you have labor in your family? Where do you stand when it comes to union workers?
Yeah, I'm very supportive of unions. And I'd say that, you know, my generation, I don't think enough of us grew up understanding the importance of unions because really among my age group was when we saw unions being collapsed more than growing. And so, I'm somewhere around 36 years old. I've reached the age where I stop remembering. um, but I really think and know from the data that that's when unions were in their biggest decline. So I've had a lot to learn about unions as I've become more political. And I had the privilege of running with the president of the IBEW in Colorado Springs and learning so much about unions from him. And, our Democratic Party in Colorado Springs had our meetings at the Union Hall. And I have come to learn, especially through a lot of my endorsements in that last campaign too, that unions are what build a middle class. And I see also that unions are what can fight fascism and authoritarianism because it's literally, in a sense, like a form of governing because you're bringing people together to have more power than those who are oppressing them. And, when it comes to work level tier type relationship, in so many ways, our businesses and our jobs become a pyramid. And then there's power and money consolidated at the top that, doesn't ever trickle down to the bottom. And it takes unionizing and gathering those people together at the bottom to make sure that the point on top is being held accountable. And that's what I feel like is my reason for running for office, even, right? Is to gather the people at the bottom under some inspirational, hopeful value and goal, and to push for that change at that very top level. And yeah, I love unions and support unions, and I know how important labor and laborers are to everything we get done. And I'd like to see more unionizing um, among those, for example, who are caregivers. As a woman, as a mother of your young children during a pandemic, I have experienced how little our work is valued, how little caregiving of people with disabilities or the elderly, people with injuries, mental health concerns, anything like that. It's not valued work. And I'd really like to see us make that work have value. And I see unionizing as a way towards that.
Right. It's funny that you bring that up. 2012 or 13, I guess, 2013, no, 2014, sorry. Um, I did a stint for about a year as an organizer for the Service Employees Union. And one of my areas was down in Southeast Missouri. And I was organizing for home care workers
Mhm.
and giving these people an opportunity to better their standard of living. And one of the things that you said that is exactly right is that people don't value the work that they do. And most of these people are classified as independent contractors. If they're trying to lift someone out of a bed and in a wheelchair to bathe someone, and they hurt their back, they don't have workman's comp to fall back on. And it really puts them in a bad situation. So no, I'm glad to hear you say that that's something that you would support. One of the things that I'm fond of talking about is, you know, our nation's economy was much, much better when General Motors was our number one private employer. And
Mhm.
now it's either Walmart or Amazon, depending on who you listen to. And when you take all those $70,000 a year auto assembly jobs out of the economy and you replace them with $30,000 a year Walmart jobs or Amazon, whatever the case may be, you don't
Yep.
only lose the economic stimulus of $40,000, that's a lot of money that goes back into the economy, but you lose the income tax on that. And everything suffers from
Mhm.
our roads and bridges to our schools, our first responders. You know, it has a very bad effect on the rest of our economy and the towns when we lose those jobs. You know, I worked at Fenton. A lot of people don't know it. St. Louis used to be number two in auto manufacturing behind Detroit. We had 4 auto assembly plants in the St. Louis metropolitan area that employed 25,000 workers, and the supply plants and everything like that, we're down to one. And it's frustrating to see what that does, but it's also devastating to the economy. Our school
Mhm.
districts, everybody suffers from it. And
Mhm.
Cape Girardeau, I mean, down in Dexter, Missouri, that's in your district. There's a
Yep.
UAW local down there that made parts for auto manufacturing. Anyway, so no, I'm glad to hear you that you do support organized labor. I think it's critical to the recovery of our nation that we have strong unions. But I'd also like to get your take on the PRO Act. The PRO Act is legislation that will level the playing field, for unions and give them an opportunity. Perfect example. There's been recent wins by organized labor at Amazon, Starbucks. Starbucks is really doing, the organizers there are doing a great job and getting them to go union, but getting them to go union and having the CEO of Starbucks and their management sit down with the union officials is the other thing. It makes it very difficult, and they can wait out the clock until people start losing interest. So we
Mhm.
need legislation that'll be proposed that will force them, when their employees, the majority of them vote to have a union, that forces them to sit at the table and bargain in good faith. It's not enough to sit down and bargain. They have to bargain in good faith to get a contract that benefits the workers and the company.
Mhm.
So that, that's kind of where I'm at. And I appreciate you having a similar position when it comes to organized labor and recognizing the important role that unions play in
Yeah.
our state's economy. Um,
Absolutely.
what about education? What's your position when it comes to education and some of the controversial issues like book burns and CRT?
Well, education is the foundation of a society. I, am a product of a public school teacher. My mom taught US history and government in public schools for over 20 years. After she was a sports medicine person, then she went and taught and had tons of kids too that she taught all the time. So I know how critical that education is, and I that's one area that I've spent some time researching, where how did we get to where we're at now, so that I know how can we take ourselves out of here, right? And it's very disappointing and disheartening to me that there was a purposeful movement of people, starting about 35-ish years ago, to dismantle our education system, our public education system. And, they wanted to privatize it for profit, but they also wanted to make sure that, we're not raising people who understand that unionizing has power over the, establishment, and teaching people about revolutions and how they can make their government and their country work better for them. And so they wanted just worker bees, and they've been trying to take away our education and defund it and defund our teachers so that they quit. And I'm sick of it.
I am too. You kind of
So,
froze up there for a minute. That's good. I think you're
okay,
back.
there, we're good. Okay, I
Yeah,
got a
you're
phone
good.
call, so it shut me
Oh,
down.
oh, sorry about it.
Okay,
Well, welcome back. Anyway, no,
thanks.
those are all excellent points, and it's our education system, and we are building the future. The teachers are literally building the future.
Yeah.
And with the way the teachers' pay has gone, Missouri ranks, I think, 50th
49th or 50th. Yep.
in the country when it comes to education or pay for our teachers. That's horrible.
Yeah.
That is horrible. My sister and her husband are both retired school teachers, and there's nothing I'd like to see better than the teachers being given the value for the work that they do and being paid properly.
Yep. I want to comment on that too, because
Oh, yeah,
I thought that there was a positive thing that we got passed in the legislature, the state legislature this year. And so one of the things that our Democratic minority was able to get passed in the state legislature was a 1-year pay increase for new teachers. Okay, so I thought that was a good thing. But I was going to my school board meetings. We try to go, me or my husband, to every school board meeting every month. And our school board just voted and decided not to implement that pay raise for first year teachers because one, it might only be for 1 year. And what if they have to drop that teacher's pay down in the next year? But two, they were worried that if they started some of their first year teachers out a little bit higher than their other teachers, that they might lose morale among teachers. So I really just want to point that out because I think we need to remember that what we see in policy does not always happen on the ground. And it's up to us to be attentive to something in our civic community. That might be school board meetings, that might be city council, but to pick something and to stay attentive to it and to find out what's happening. Because if enough of us in the school pushed back, I'm sure we could get the school board to change and reverse decision. But there's like maybe 3 people that come to these meetings, and it's usually me or my husband. Um, and if we're not paying attention, we can't make those changes that the legislature did try to help us do, granted for 1 year. But yeah, I just want people to know that local is so important because that's where we make these changes going upward. It does not come from the top down.
right. No, I agree 100%. And wouldn't it be wonderful if there were more people who thought like you running for office throughout the 8th Congressional District that would
That
be
would be
on
great.
those school boards? Yes, exactly. It would be on their city councils. It would be on their county commissions. I think that that's one of the things that we need to do is encourage people to take ownership in the direction their districts are going and run for office and get involved. And
That's
that's one
right.
of the difficult things.
And let me give you a statistic that I just recently uncovered for our district. We have 21 state house districts that have some part of them inside of the 8th congressional district. Out of those 21 state house districts, there's only 5 Democrats running for 5 seats, and there's 16 state house seats only in the 8th district that don't have someone running against the Republicans. So they will be unopposed seats. That's not a democracy. When you don't have choices on a ballot, that's not a democracy. And like you said, having awesome people run down ballot shifts everything up ballot, right? I know our race here in the 8th is going to help us elect a Democratic senator for the US Senate seat. And that's one of the reasons I ran for this is I know that organizing down ballot helps up ballot races. And yeah, so if we could get more people to see themselves as being able to run a race, then we can turn these areas blue because right now 16 state house seats in my 8th congressional won't even have a Democratic choice on the ballot. So of course they're only going to have Republican outcomes. There's no Dem, right?
Right, right. It's really frustrating because, like I said before, I'm born and raised in rural Missouri. And at one point in time, rural Missouri had a lot of Democrats. Down in the 8th Congressional, you had a handful of Democrats that held state representatives, your county commissions and various things like that had a lot of Democrats. But I think that over the years, we just got frustrated and started backing away. And that was one of the worst things we could do. It's kind of like having a garden that you work so hard to cultivate a garden. And then after a certain amount of time, when you're not getting enough fruit out of the garden or produce out of the garden, you just kind of let it go. And I think that's where we're at now. So we have to find ways to get around that. And the work that you're doing is instrumental in changing that outlook. So my hat's off to you on that. Congratulations. And
Thanks.
you're doing a great service for the people in your district and you're doing it is for the state Democratic Party. And one thing that we learned from Bernie's race is that you can implement change by being vocal. You can make people think about things that they maybe hadn't thought about before. So one of the things I like to do in my interviews is I'll play Queen for a day, where you get to make the rules for the 8th Congressional District. And you get to come up with anything you want, and whatever rules you make will become the law. So if that were the case, what would be one of the first things you would do for Missouri's 8th Congressional, the people in Missouri's 8th Congressional District?
I would make high-speed broadband internet access instantly everywhere, with no barriers to who can access it. Everyone would have access, and there would be no monopolies of companies. It would, be a very low paying, extremely low fee, great internet. And I think that that would have huge impacts on the other things I would really want to do, which is making sure we have good healthcare access out here. And the internet can help do that, and education out here. And the internet can help us with that at first while we build back up our educational capacity out here. While we build up our healthcare capacity, we can have access to, online healthcare services. And that would help with mental health access, because, we talk about healthcare access out here being abysmal. Mental health isn't even something people talk about out here. And so, I think that'd be key. Also, housing. And so internet could help with that, in the sense that there's more people that could have jobs online and then be able to afford keeping their house, in good standing, and to buy up the property that's falling apart nearby and to fix that up. But since I'm queen, I get to do whatever I want. And so we would also invest in rural housing development, so that we had housing for our adult children to move into, for our elderly parents to live close by us while we care for them in their old age, so that a manufacturing plant could open up down here. Because right now, we can't even talk about opening a manufacturing plant in the 8th anymore. There's no houses for people to move into. You have to have a small town structure and community before you can bring jobs back in. So there's my queen for days: internet to everyone, and investing in rural housing and infrastructure. So that includes our roads and our bridges, because out here in rural Missouri, when it floods a little, sometimes you're just trapped wherever you are until those roads lose the water.
Right. You were talking about the high-speed internet and how it could help with the medical issues. There's a lot of different programs out there where people can access a doctor online and do FaceTime calls like what we're doing, and they can
Yep.
have conversations. And it may not be the same, it would not be the same as going and seeing a doctor in person, but as scattered as the health clinics, urgent cares, hospitals are throughout the 8th Congressional, that would be a huge thing, and it would probably actually help save some lives.
Well, and I got to be honest, Glenn, I do counseling through my phone, and I sit right here and I talk to my doctor. And honestly, there is so much less nervousness about it for me, because I don't have to make some certain appointment in the car, right? So, like, I'm not like, oh, get the kids ready and I have to leave and I have to drive there, and oh, I got stuck in traffic and now I'm at the doctor's office for 35 minutes waiting for my appointment. And
Right.
right, there's none of that. It is so much less stressful to sit here at my desk and be like, oh, 5 minutes, boop, hey,
There you go.
doctor, and that's it.
Right. But no, actually, in addition to what you're saying, is when COVID was running rampant throughout the country, um, I had COVID and I did online visits with the doctor. That saves the doctor from being exposed to the
Yeah,
pandemic, the virus that kept me at the house where I didn't have to go out. It was huge, and it's something that could really be beneficial to the people, especially in rural Missouri, where they do not have the same access to healthcare that they have in some of the cities.
that's
So,
absolutely right.
yeah, and I'd like to see factories move in to rural Missouri, to the 8th Congressional District. But the problem that you're gonna have is the first thing anybody looks at before they relocate is what's the infrastructure like.
Right.
Can it support a factory? Do they have the electric grid to support a factory? The internet? Do this, the people in the community have the education to be able to read a tape measure or run a drill press for some of the issues that they would run into? And that's something that I think would be critical to rebuilding the 8th Congressional District in rural Missouri. And that's making sure that we have strong education, high-speed internet. Those are all things that you talked about.
But
Nobody,
Glenn,
go ahead.
when you're talking about what you're talking about, and I'm sure there's some, union and labor folks that are going to be listening, hopefully in this district. And something I want them to know is that my current opponent, he's been in there for 9 years, and he does not see that for this district. He has said to many people to their face that this is an agricultural district and that it shouldn't even have small towns because, his vision of agriculture is big agriculture. It's not small family farms. He doesn't support family farming as much as he does big ag. And so he doesn't want housing here. He wants all of this to be agriculture. He doesn't want manufacturing here. He wants it all to be agriculture. And so, we're not moving anywhere for anything if we don't replace him.
Well, I'm going to cover two things real quick. When I was doing the organizing drive down in the 8th Congressional, I was in Kennett, Missouri. I had been down there for a few weeks, and it was right around Easter. And I went to the Catholic church on a Friday night for a fish fry. And I started talking to the nun, and she was talking about how things were going. And she said that the agriculture is the number one employer because they had a factory down there. It was an Emerson factory. They made electric motors. And she said when it closed down, the town, it just really devastated the whole town. And she said now the main people that work there are immigrants that come up and work the fields to harvest the crops.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that the town will actually double in size. And what the Catholic Church does is they have blanket drives where they go out in the winter and they find cars, or in the cool evenings, and they pass out blankets to the people that are sleeping in their cars while they're up doing the harvesting. And that's pretty sad.
Yeah.
So the other part of this is Jason Smith is a congressman. He's been in office, like you said, for 9 years. Before him, it was Joanne Emerson. What legislation can you name that they have sponsored or written that have benefited the residents of the 8th Congressional District?
That's a good question, and I'm still looking for a bill that has helped the 8th District. I have a little team of people helping my campaign, and we have been scouring through his votes to find out how he votes on things. He voted against affordable insulin, for example, price capping insulin. And so again, voting for big pharma and not the people in his district. As far as what is he sponsored, most of those things are around anti-choice legislation. So most of the bills I've found that he's had a co-sponsor on have been, to limit our access to healthcare, and also to, essentially, like that's a big part of it, and a lot of tax cuts for the wealthy in the years of Trump.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
really
Yeah. He wasn't a good congressman when we were in the district, and he's not a good for my opinion, he's not a good congressman now. But I don't want to make this about beating up on him too much, because I think what the people want to know are what are your goals and what is your vision to kind of reverse his anti-people platform and bring about the good jobs. And you've already covered that with education, with the high-speed internet. The people get caught up in the controversial issues, and I kind of threw out a little bit of red meat for you with the CRT and the book burns. That's kind of to me, it's a joke. It's
a distraction. It's trying to make us angry when we need to just focus on the important things and the people.
Right. And the important things are, how am I going to feed my family?
Right.
That's why we call this table talk.
Table issues.
Yes, exactly. Where is the money going to come from to pay my rent or to pay for my insulin? How am I going to feed my family? Yep. I read a study a while back in Clayton, Missouri. which is a suburb of St. Louis, the life expectancy for a white male is like 85 years of age. When you go to Ellington in Reynolds County, the life expectancy of an average white male drops to like 72 years. That is terrible.
It's
That
huge.
it is. And it's because of the lack of access to affordable health care in rural Missouri. I think the nearest hospital is Rolla or
Mm.
Cape Girardeau. And that's absolutely ridiculous that the people have to drive that far, especially when the economy is in such bad shape and the gas prices are so high that there's
Yeah.
people that if they have to drive 80 miles, they have to have the vehicle, they have to be able to afford the fuel for it. It's going to cost them $30 or $40 to drive to a doctor's appointment. And then if they can't get in right away, I mean, it's horrible what
Yeah.
people in rural Missouri are going through, and we are not progressing. We're not moving forward with finding ways to benefit them. And the people that we have elected now, they really don't care. That's why it's
No.
important for you to run and important for you to get the word out and have the message to the people that you're bringing help.
Thanks, Glenn. And I want to say, just a little bit ago, you said, what are some of your goals? And, obviously I've touched on a lot of those, but I do want to kind of give another perspective of my campaign. One reason why I started running for office back in 2020's election, like I said, was to kind of bring people who didn't see themselves in politics into, politics, to have them see someone like me who had been working in homes with families, getting into government work. And I like to engage people who don't have experience in this advocacy or this type of civics or government to gain that experience, to see a place for themselves in government. And so a part of my goal with running for this 8th district is to help organize, the 8th district, to get Democrats and progressive voices and people who haven't felt like they've been represented at all, independents and Republicans who don't see themselves as a part of that party anymore, to organize us in a way that we have candidates running up and down the ballot in all the seats. There's choices, because ultimately we're all frustrated with our government, all of us. And the only way to make it better and to work for us is for us to be in the government. We are supposed to be the government. It is supposed to be us. And so that's a big goal of this campaign, is to connect with people across this district so that in 2024, there's 10, if not 21 Democrats running in all 21 state house districts in the 8th district. Because that's when we'll flip this district easily, is when there's 21 Democrats running underneath me on the ballot.
Oh, that's great. And that by you getting involved, coming to the state of Missouri, seeing the vacancy, seeing what needs to be done, and stepping up and taking on that gauntlet, that says a lot about you as a person and the courage that it takes to do that. It's not easy. I've ran for office before. I ran for school board and lost. I ran for county clerk and lost. It's not easy. And there's an old joke out there that if you can't remember things about your past, run for office, somebody will remind you. So, and with today's social media, it makes it even worse because you become a target for some people that say some really ugly things. But the sense I'm getting from you is none of that's going to bother you. You're very intelligent. You're ready to go, and the idea that you have to try to build this district from the ground up is, I think it's wonderful, and it really is something that we need to emulate throughout the state of Missouri, throughout the country. We need to take that approach. We need to get people registered. But this program, I don't know how many people will hear it, but I'm trying to use this program to reach the people that may not hear your voice,
Mm-hmm.
out on the campaign trail. And they'll hear you, and they'll hear your common sense approach to some of the issues that they face every day. And they'll wake up and they'll say, you know what, I'm voting. And that's how we get it. That's how we get it done. Or they may say, you know what, I'm going to run for office. You have the courage to do it. You lead, we'll follow. Thank you for coming on the show. You've been a wonderful guest. Is there anything I'm going to give you the closing statement?
Thanks, Glenn. It was so nice to be here with everyone. And I would say follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook under my name, Randi McCallain. And you can also find me at my website, randymccallion.com. And those are great ways to get engaged, learn more, and help us build this movement. We're here to support you if you're interested in running for school board or county commissioner or city council. There's so many things that you can do to get engaged. And I really just want to see the 8th district have a voice again and have power in what we want to see in our district and not feel, powerless in our government.
Well, Randy, that's great. I will be posting this on YouTube as soon as I can get it edited. We'll put it up on YouTube and you'll be able to share it on all your platforms, except TikTok, because that's like 3-minute videos.
Right.
But
I'll do
yeah,
some clips.
yeah, there you go. And if you want to do a live on there, I did a live with Jessica Piper. It's been about a month or two ago. If you
Oh,
want to do a
fun.
live, yeah, I know an old guy like me on TikTok. Who would have thought it, right? But
Fun. We'll do that sometime.
yeah, we can do that. And that way we can take questions from other people and things like that. And I'm going to close it out with this. One of the things that I have in the works is I'm going to do a round table or town hall, whatever you call it, of candidates that are running at every level in rural Missouri. And we'll set it up. We'll have it moderated where people have time to speak. That way everybody gets a turn. And I think we're going to work on trying to get that set up in the next few weeks so that hopefully we can use that as another opportunity to get the word out. Share this when I get done. Please feel free to share it to any platform that you want. To those listening or watching, get out and vote. Run for office. Find candidates that have common sense approaches like Randy and get behind their campaigns. If you can donate money, donate money. If you can't donate money, go out and knock doors.
Join your local Democratic committee, your county Democratic committee. Join them because they have resources to help all candidates. And you should also be a poll worker in your county because we need more poll workers to help at the polls.
That'd be great. That's great. And that's a good way to close it out. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Randy, thanks for coming on the show. I'll be in touch for something down the road. Thank you very much.
Sounds great.
Good night.
Night.